Uh, Hey guys, we're gonna be studying about the scientific miracles of Quran today. The Quran contains numerous verses often cited as scientific miracles or signs detailing concepts ranging from the universe origin to human development. Key examples include descriptions of Big Bang, the expanding universe, the protective atmosphere, and embryological stages, which proponents argue match modern scientific discoveries. So you have the Big Bang and the expansion. Quran 21:30, I'm just waiting for the people to join actually, describes the heavens and the earth as a sewn up entity that was unstitched, opened up, matching the Big Bang theory. Furthermore, the expansion of the universe is cited from the heaven. We are expanding it. Okay, that is a pretty clear explanation of why the universe is actually expanding. That's a pretty clear sort of explanation of why Islam is actually true. Like, how else would a guy 1400 years ago would have come up with something like this? I am your only viewer, Marcel Nagy. Yes, man. Thanks for being my viewer, to be honest. Like, it could just be a direct conversation. It's just me talking to you right now, Marcel. But I'm pretty sure like people would start joining. I mean, to be honest, like, it kind of gets weird sometimes. Like when you start the stream and it's like nobody's watching me. Like, what do I do? I not say anything? Do I say something? But not because I have developed a mindset for myself that it doesn't even matter. Even if I've got like a zero viewer, and I actually pull up the topic, and I know that I'm going to be talking about scientific miracles, I'm just gonna talk in a way. I'm just gonna act in a way that there's like millions of people actually watching my stream all over the world, and I'm like one of the most popular persons on the planet. So whatever. Okay, so what's your opinion on like the scientific miracles in Quran? Actually, I don't know how many you've heard about. So the Big Bang expansion theory is actually a pretty it's a pretty convincing one for myself, because I am also one of the guys who had questions about I had questions about Islam itself and the miracles. Like, were they actually true? Were they actually miracles, or was it just like somebody actually made them up? Have you seen the Greater Israeli map on the shoulders of IDF soldiers' uniform? I personally not have seen it, but boom, 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 boom. Oh, we're pulling it up. Okay, images of Israeli soldiers wearing uniform depicting a map of Greater Israel have circulated on social media, particularly in mid 2024, raising concerns regarding territorial expansionist aims. God damn it, dude! They're already wearing those uniforms. It's pretty clear then. It's pretty obvious, like what they actually want. Often includes the territory of present-day Israel. We're talking about the present-day Israel. We're talking about the Palestine. We're talking about Jordan, Lebanon, parts of Syria, Iraq, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. That's a big one. That's the one that I'm surprised about. Iraq, all right, I'm sure they would actually have that. Iran, I thought Iran's name would also be there, but Iran is not there. Egypt and Saudi Arabia. Like, Saudi Arabia is one of your allies, and he's got a map of Saudi Arabia inside as well. This is kind of, it's a bit messed up. These images appear during Israeli operations in Gaza, with some reported on uniforms in late 2024. Mm. Eretz Yisrael Hashalema, the whole land of Israel, which some far-right Israeli groups believe encompasses the biblical promised land, often defined as stretching from the Nile to the Euphrates. Yes, bro, it is pretty sad. It is pretty sad. It is embarrassing, but this is what we are actually dealing with here. Okay, so let me rephrase the miracle again. The Big Bang expansion theory miracle, because I want people to actually pay attention to it. So Quran 21:30, that's the reference. It says, describes the heavens and the earth as a sewn up entity that was unstitched. So heavens and the earth were sort of sewn up. So they were kind of unstitched, right? Matching the Big Bang theory. Furthermore, the expansion of the universe is cited from the heaven. It started from the heaven. We are expanding it. So, like Einstein actually told everybody, the universe is actually expanding. So scientists believed in this, that the universe was actually contracting even in the 1800s and 1900s. We found out that it was actually expanding, and now it's expanding at a higher rate now. So that makes you think that how did Muhammad actually know that 1400 years ago? Pretty interesting, right? Can I? Yes, Abhishek, you can. Did you ever hear anything contradicting your beliefs? Oh, many times, dude. Marcel, you have no idea, to be honest. Like, there are people who are very convincing, who have very convincing arguments, to be honest. Um, will Dana makes Ilya versus Islam? Bro, this is what I want. I want Dana to actually make Ilya versus Islam, but apparently he's having some sort of problems. Like, some people are actually saying that Islam injured his hand, but then people are saying he uploaded a video of like punching on the back. So how is he injured and still punching the bag? And it was relatively with some amount of power. I wouldn't say he was punching it very hard, but he was punching with some sort of power. So has it healed now? Has his hand healed after like 2 weeks, or is it something else? Was it making it up? Or was it because of some of the other reasons? You know what some of the people are actually suspecting? Because Islam didn't want to fight on the White House card. Why didn't he want to fight on the White House card? Because he thinks that the people who are actually running the White House are like PDF, right? So that's what he thinks. I think that's the reason he don't want to fight at the White House card. Ilya versus Justin is one-sided. Abhishek, I completely agree, bro. I think it's very one-sided when people actually when you look at the matchup and like stylistically, like what is Justin Gaethje gonna do? It's not like he's gonna use the NCAA wrestling, right? That would have been the smart thing to do. Why doesn't he do it? I don't really know. He cares about the people. He's putting in show for the fans. He's gonna try to chop the legs of Ilya Taporia. He's gonna try to punch him really hard. Justin is not as tight as Ilya. He's not as concise. He's not as accurate. He's not as good as like defending the punches. So I think Ilya just pieces him up. Might be a quick one. I heard in many ways Quran is deep, but it also has errors. Like some of the people actually believe the Quran is not fully preserved. You know how some Muslims actually believe that every single word of Quran is like the word of God and it's been preserved for like the last 1400 years. I've heard arguments where they're saying that if you actually match the books of Quran, like Quranic books all around the world, they don't even match. Like you have some different words around it. So if you can come up with an argument, yeah, I can definitely try to look into it. Um, Errors wise, do you believe like that some of the miracles that are mentioned in Quran are also not correct? I've heard that one as well. I don't really know. I'm only looking at the ones that actually do make a lot of sense. And then the one you have about like the protective atmospheres. Surah Al Anbiya mentions the sky as like a protected ceiling. Okay, that's a good one, right? My mind is already going towards like the ozone layer, which corresponds to the Earth's atmosphere that protects against the harmful radiations and meteoroids. I'm not really sure if ozone actually protects you against like the meteors. I'm not sure about that, but it does protect you from the radiations. You know, like ozone layer O3, it does protect you from like the dangerous radiations coming from the sun. I have to look it up to be specific. Okay, that's fine. I mean, you can actually present an argument if you wanna. Like I know the topic is about like scientific miracles in Quran, but I can also go towards the miracles of like Bible and some of the other books as well. And just because Bible is true doesn't mean that Islam is not true. Although some people actually do make that argument as well. Like people actually say that in Quran it actually says that specifically that the people of the book will be judged according to their book. So if you're a Jew, you will be judged according to your book. If you're a Christian, you will be judged according to the Christianity, right? Your books. But then people say like in Christianity it actually says that Jesus was a God in Bible. But in Quran it actually says that Jesus was a prophet of God. So how do you have those contradictory beliefs and you still believe that God will judge them according to this? I don't really know, to be honest. Bible has errors too. I mean, possibly because Bible is even older than Quran. Like Bible came like 2000 years ago or something like this, right? When was Bible actually compiled, guys? When was it? I know some of them were actually the followers of Jesus who actually wrote it. Like Mark. Mark was Mark actually a follower of Jesus at that time? I think Mark was. Luke was not. Luke was not. Mark, Matthew, Luke. Matthew was, and then I think one of them was like one of them actually got all the stuff from Peter. So they were like friends of Peter, or like a follower of Peter. What I find sad sometimes is when I see Arab Muslims being racist to black Muslims from Senegal, Sudan, or Somalia, or when Indian Muslims do it, when Arabs do it to Indians. Yeah, that is pretty sad, man. Like how do we, even the way that we've divided the faith, we've got so many sects, and like we're looking down upon some of the sects, and also like the sects like the Shias and the Sunnis going against each other. I don't think it helps anybody in some sort of ways. And like I've also seen people actually raising concerns about like the way we pray. Like dude, it doesn't even matter if I'm praying like I personally pray like this, but even if I'm praying like this when I'm standing it, like it doesn't, it's about the connection that I have with God, right? Obviously maybe there's like a standard way, maybe there's like a correct way, but at least the person appreciate the person who's actually praying. So instead of like, correcting the little things, there are bigger things that we need to worry about. Back in the day, people went so literal, they didn't mean everything. They said literally punctuality is a new thing. Yeah, yeah, that is true. That is true. We don't even know like how the literature was actually working. We don't know how the jokes were working back in the days. We don't know how the language was. Like I know even the figurative language was very common in Arabs. So even the things that I mentioned in Quran, like some people take them literally and they're like, God is literally saying that. But it's like, dude, not necessarily. There are some things that could be literal, but some things could also be figurative because we know that Arabs were actually very figurative. That's why you would see some of the hadiths of Muhammad as well. And people don't realize, but Prophet Muhammad actually used to joke around as well. He used to joke around as well. And then he also used to use figurative language because that was very common during the time. Um, Terms were much more vague. Yeah, Marcel, I definitely 100% agree with this. People like to find difference to hate or other people, whether it's sex or race or ethnicity. People like to do that, to be honest. Like, we have divided the humanity into many different ways. Like, okay, Islam as a religion has been divided into many denominations. Christianity as a religion has been divided into many denominations. Religion itself has been divided into many, yeah, like the faith itself has been divided into many religions. You got Christians, you got Jews, you got Muslims, you got many other faiths, and they all probably believe in the same God, right? They all believe in the same God, but we've been divided into different faiths. Not just that, races. Like we've been divided into many races. Like we're just one human race, man. How many differences do you think we have? Like if you're looking at me, compared to like a white person or like a black person, I think the differences are going to be much lower than if you're looking at me and like I don't know, like an elephant or like a zebra. Like we both have two hands, we both have almost the same capacity of the brain, although it does differ in some of the people. um but yeah, so everything else is kind of same. People actually think about things in the same manner. People have the sympathy about the things in the same manner. We all sort of follow the same professions. We all kind of evolve progress in the same way. We all kind of have like the same sort of like running ability, all the functions that we can perform to almost like the similar extent. Like if there's a lion that can run at a speed of like 50 miles per hour, right? Human beings doesn't even matter. I mean, you can guys have in North Africa that can probably run much faster than me, but it's only going to be like a few miles or something. And also because they run a lot, not because they're genetically just maybe just a little superior. But how superior are they? About 1 mile, 2 miles per hour? Yeah. But then you look at the lion and you're like, it's running at a completely different speed. Like this is a completely different species. So I don't know why we divided the humanity in so many different groups when we're almost similar, right? We can have differences in heights. There could be a guy who's 7 feet tall. There's could be a guy who's like 5'10" or 5'8" or something like this. But you would never have something like, oh, there's a guy. It's normal for the guys to be 13 feet tall, and then it's normal for the guys to be like 5 feet tall. That's not normal. Okay, let's look at some of the other miracles in the Quran. Okay, so the one that I was talking about, like the ozone layer, right? It's mentions the sky as a protected ceiling. So 2132, which corresponds to the Earth's atmosphere that protects against harmful radiations and meteors. What do I think about Wahhabism? For me, I don't believe Wahhabism, whether it's a sector. Okay, bro, I don't know. Your comment has been. I think YouTube has actually removed your comment. I don't think YouTube would actually let you. Okay, if your comment actually stays, that's great. To be honest, I'm gonna have to pull up Wahhabism. I had friends who were like Wahhabis are like Ahle Hadith, right? Are like Ahle Hadith, and they give a lot of value to the Hadith. They give the same value to Ahadith as the Quran. Am I correct in saying that? The only problem that I would have with that is that Quran actually is much more authentic, right? It's much more authentic. The reason it being authentic is that Quran was actually getting brought up onto the Holy Prophet himself, right? So it's a very first hand thing. Like he's first hand getting that experience from the angels. So Gabriel is actually coming to Holy Prophet. He's actually giving him the verses of the Quran, and now what he's doing is he's getting that on daily basis or like the weekly basis. Then he's telling his followers those verses, and then there's a guy that he had who was writing it, right? So during those days, Arab wasn't advanced enough to actually have like proper paper stuff. So I think they were carving it on the stone. Some people were memorizing it and stuff. And then later on, they actually put everything in order as she wrote it. But still, Quran, even though it was written like 50 after like 50 years on the paper or something like this, but it is still more precise than the Ahadith. It's more authentic than the Hadith. With Ahadith, the most authentic ones you have like the Sahih Bukhari or Sahih Muslim, but even they were like after 150 years or like 200 years, right? So I'm not saying ahadith are wrong. Like I am a firm believer in ahadith as well. I do believe, but I think with ahadith you need to look at the consistency, right? So if there's like 5 Muslim authors actually writing a single incident, I think you need to see how many things they have in like common, right? So if all 5 of them are just citing the same incident, then that incident must have happened. But if everyone is talking about a different incident, so somebody's saying that this happened, and then other person says a completely different incident happening, and then the other one has a completely different, then in that case, you're going to be suspicious about it. I find God sometimes in high class techno music. Dude, I think you can find God in everything. And you know what's the best explanation which we can actually give? God actually says it to us. Like, find me find me in the creation. Basically, that's what he does. And when he's saying find me in the creation, he's not just basically referring to creation as us, or like creation to as the animals. He's also asking us to find himself in that laptop, in the computer, in a food, in everywhere. You know why? Because even though some of the things were actually made by us, like we're the ones who actually made computers. God didn't actually make us the computers. But where are we getting the brains from? Where are we getting the thinking from? God is the one that actually planted the idea in our minds, right? So the thinking itself, the brain itself has been given by God. So if you're creating something like this, I mean, for sure we can find signs of God. So even in techno music, maybe but in a deep sense. I do understand it, bro. I fully understand it. Like there's people who actually find that there's many Sufis in Islam. Actually, there's many Sufis in Islam who found God in some sort of like music. And then people who even talk about meditations, like there might be guys who don't believe directly in the religion, but they believe when they're doing the meditation, they're feeling some sort of like connection to like a higher power outside. I believe they might be accessing, like, I've never done meditation to that extent myself. Like, I've never actually sat in a jungle or in like a fully quiet place where I'm fully cut off from the world and I'm trying to focus on something bigger than that. But people who've actually done it, they actually feel something outside. They feel some sort of connection. So I think there's a deep connection that they're developing. This is my belief actually. But Jilao, if you're still on the stream, let me just see if I can find something on like Wahhabism. I don't have, to be honest, I don't have much information about Wahhabism. I don't know the deeper beliefs of Wahhabism, but let's find it out. Okay, Wahhabism is a strict puritanical reform movement within Sunni Islam, founded in the 18th century by Muhammad al-Wahhab in Arabia. It promotes, so it's relatively new actually, it promotes a literal interpretation of the Quran and the Sunnah, aiming to purify Islam by rejecting later innovations and promoting a return to practices of the early Muslim generations. Also, Wahhabis are like literal with everything. Okay, so they're literals with like Qurans and Sunnah. Founded in the 18th century in the Najd region of the Arabian Peninsula, it advocates for a strict literal interpretation of Islamic texts and strict adherence to Sharia law. Okay, so Wahhabism, I would say, is a bit more extreme. Like, I'm personally not a Wahhabi. Okay, the close experience of seeing the beauty of creation to me was mushrooms. Yeah, what do you say about mushrooms? I was talking to my friends the other day about mushrooms. I was like, wow, like, he has done like DMT and stuff and like LSDs. Like, what do you think about the mushrooms? Do you think there's something that is actually happening? And I'm talking about like the high intense ones, like if you're doing DMT or like LSDs, like that's got to be some sort of experience. Like what is actually going on? Are you, because I know there's like a theory, by a scientist who actually believes that your brain is the one who's actually lying to you, basically. So you are connected to like a higher source. You here is not the actual, it's not the actual you. The actual you is living outside the realms of the space and the time, right? And your brain over here is created to not tell you the truth, but actually cover you from all the problems that you have, and is creating all the images. And if you shut down the brain, that's when you can actually see the reality. So your brain is actually working to tell you, to lie to you, basically. That's what it's doing. So when you shut it down using the mushrooms or whatever, you can actually see the reality. Mushrooms are from God depicted in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Yeah, there's so many theories about the mushrooms, even about like the prophets themselves. Like isn't it something that people actually say about the prophet Moses, like when he was talking to the burning bush, and then he actually came up with this prophethood theory that he was talking to God. Actually, he was on DMT or something like this. There's something about that as well, right? Let me check like how How do mushrooms? Okay, magic mushrooms, also known as shrooms, work by introducing psychoactive compounds into the body, which then travel to the brain. So, produce in the body, travel to the brain, and alter normal brain function and neural connectivity. The primary active ingredient, psilocybin, is converted by the body into psilocin, which binds to serotonin. Serotonin is the one I know, the serotonin receptors, primarily the 5-HT2A receptor, to produce hallucinogenic, euphoric, and deeply introspective experiences known as trips. That's where the saying tripping comes from. Dried or breathed mushrooms. Okay, what else is saying? Consumption mushrooms are eaten raw, dried, or breathed into the interaction with the brain. Serotonin mimicry. Okay, psilocin is chemically similar to serotonin, a neurotransmitter that regulates mood, sleep, and perception. It docks into the same serotonin receptors, particularly in the prefrontal cortex and amygdala, which controls cognition and emotions. Psilocin disrupts the default mode network DMN, a brain network responsible for self-reflection and self-identity. So it is disrupting the default mode network. You can buy them in China market. What's your opinion? Yeah, like I am surprised by what I'm reading right now, actually. Altered communication. So it's saying it is disrupting the default mode network, DMN, a brain network responsible for self-reflection and self-identity. Isn't that going against like the very psychology of like using the mushrooms? Because people actually believe if you actually use those mushrooms, you will be able to find themselves. Like some people also feel like talking to God, having the flashbacks of their whole life, like what they did, their ego completely dies. I mean, that what it says as well. Like with Mike Tyson, he was saying that I completely killed myself. Like I killed my ego and I actually used the mushrooms. I'm a different person now. And it's saying that it is disrupting the self-reflection. So is it kind of like fake process? It's kind of faking something. So it's not actually like killing the ego. It's not actually that. This makes the DMN less active while increasing connectivity between or other brain regions that don't usually communicate. This disorganized brain activity leads to decreased self-critical, ruminating thoughts and produces visual auditory hallucinations. So it's reducing the self-critical, ruminating thoughts as well. Okay, colors appear brighter, surfaces appear shimmer, objects may distort to appear to move. Oh my God, I am seeing that in my sleep, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie. Am I on mushrooms actually? Objects may distort to appear to move. Time and self-distortions. A loss of sense of time, seconds feels like hours. And a feeling of ego dissolution, losing the sense of being a separate individual and feeling connected to the universe. Okay, so now you're not feeling like a separate individual, you're actually feeling connected to the universe. Okay, that would actually go along with the theory of one of the scientists that I was telling you. He's talking about like the collective consciousness. He's like, I'm not a separate consciousness from you. We're like one collective consciousness, actually spread into smaller parts, but we are still one. So it's telling you that they are actually losing the sense of being a separate individual and feeling connected to the universe. So maybe there's something to it, to be honest. Maybe there's something to it here. That's interesting. Okay. Intense emotional shifts ranging from profound euphoria and awe to anxiety and panic, known as a bad trip. That could happen too, I guess, if you used it. I've never actually done a mushroom in my life. It doesn't kill the ego, that's just hype. It doesn't actually kill it. How many times have you done it, and which mushroom did you actually do? Never forget this: reality doesn't reason. If you know this, you good. Okay. Never forget this. I'm actually not getting this. I'll never forget this: reality doesn't reason. So like if you know what is happening, like the mechanics of like how it's working, then it's all kind of good, right? Okay, nausea and vomiting, often in the first hour, increase heart rate, blood pressure, pupil dilation, and dizziness. So you're kind of feeling weak as well. So I'll probably do it on the days that I'm not actually going to the gym. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to have the session. So maybe one of the least productive days I will do that. Recent research suggests that the temporary disruption of the default mode network can allow the brain to break out of rigid negative thought patterns, offering potential benefits for treating depression and anxiety, especially in patients with terminal illnesses. Like, I completely understand it. If it's actually taking the pressure away from your brain, there's no more stresses. Substance use disorders, helping individuals overcome addiction, smoking, alcohol. Well, if it's helping you take over the get over the smoking habit or the alcohol abuse order, then I am totally for it. Neuroplasticity. Some studies suggest psilocybin encourages neurons to sprout new branches. Dendrites, increasing connectivity and allowing for lasting changes in perspective. Key factors and risks, set and settings. The intestinal experience depends on set, the user's mindset, mood, and experience setting, physical environment. Oh, it depends a lot on the physical environment. It also depends a lot on your mindset before you're actually doing it. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot, to be honest. There's a lot to unpack when it comes to mushrooms. Okay, back to the scientific miracles in Quran. So we're going to human embryology. That's another one. The Quran describes the development of the human embryo in stages. You have, starting with a clinging form, you have alaka, starting with a clinging form, transitioning into a chewed lump, mudga, while some scholars interpret as matching modern scientific findings. So clinging form, because when the baby is actually born in the embryo, they're kind of clung to the embryo. I'm guessing that one. And then transitioning into a chewed lump. Okay, mountains as stakes. So this one somewhat you can actually make sense of it. Mountains as stakes. The Quran describes mountains as stakes, and this is 7867, or pegs. Some mountains can also be used as like stakes or pegs, which geologists have found to be accurate as they have deep roots underneath the Earth's crust to stabilize it. That actually kind of makes sense. So we know that mountains are actually deeply rooted inside this Earth, and that's why they're used as like stabilizers. They kind of stabilize the Earth, because otherwise the Earth wouldn't be having the same sort of surface, right? Um, um, and it's like pegs. Yes, that kind of makes sense, but they haven't given the whole verse about this. Let me just pull up the verse, because there's more to it, I think. Try the breathing technique of taking no breath for 10 seconds and a deep breath. Keep repeat a few times. Okay, I don't think I can do it right now. But yeah, maybe in a different environment, maybe when I'm completely ready for it, when that's the whole thing my mind is actually working on, I could do that. Is there like a scientific research done on that it will actually calm the mind? Mountains are often described in both geological and religious contexts as acting like pegs or anchors that help stabilize the Earth's crust. While they form through tectonic plate collisions rather than stopping movement, their deep root-like structures extend into the mantle, maintaining equilibrium and providing stability to the crustal plates. I mean, this is a pretty obvious thing. I don't know how advanced the science was during that time, because some of the people actually have a criticism of the Quran where this is even 1400 years ago, people actually were quite smart. There were scientists that had come even before the time, like you're talking about Aristotle and some of the other scientists. They had their theories going on even before that. So it was some of the knowledge that Hazrat Muhammad actually took it from those scientists, basically, and then he actually put that in the book. It is kind of hard to believe that scientists during that time had any knowledge about like mountains being used as pegs to stabilize the Earth. That is kind of hard to believe, to be honest. Do you have any sort of like knowledge about this? Have you read? Have you done any research into this? Okay, iron from the sky. The phrase "we send down iron" is interpreted to mean that iron was not native to Earth but brought to the planet via meteorites, a fact confirmed by modern astrophysics. That is confirmed by astrophysics, that iron was brought onto the Earth Why the meteorites? Because we don't actually, there's no resources of iron on this earth other than the resources that we actually got from the meteorites. Few passages about self-defense. You read Quran about a few passages about the self-defense, right? I mean, it mentions about self-defense, which people actually use against Islam as well. They say like Islam actually allows you to attack those people, but what they don't tell you is that it's only for self-defense. Let's pull up self-defense. Okay. So first of all, Quran is permitting self-defense for those who have been attacked or wronged. I think it's a little bit contrary to the Christianity, where Christianity, if somebody slaps you on the face, you turn your other cheek as well for them to slap you. But I think what God must have realized that it wasn't beneficial for the nature of the human beings, or maybe it was okay for that time. But then God said that I would have to be more strict, maybe otherwise people will be misusing it. So He brought down a new command, which is like, if somebody hurts you, try to hurt you, you have the right to actually self-defend yourself. Okay, I am not a Christian. We can skip it. Oh, you're not a Christian. Sorry, my bad. Do you follow any religions, or like do you have anything? Key principles include fighting only those who fight you, maintain proportionality, avoid transgression. Surah Al-Hajj 22:39 grants permission to fight to those who are attacked or oppressed, stating permission is given to those against whom fighting is launched because they have been wronged. I know God exists. I don't believe anything. Oh, so you don't believe in any sort of religions, but you know that God exists because you have some sort of experiences, whether you were meditating or whether you took the mushrooms, and you believe there's like a higher power that has to be running this world. I get it. Chris. Hey, Chris, good to see you, man. But do not. Okay, then there's another verse in Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah. Muslims are instructed to defend themselves, but not to overstep limits. So we can only defend ourselves. We should never be the one actually initiating the fight. Fight in the cause of Allah against those who fight you, but do not transgress. Verily, Allah does not love the transgressors. So that's where the verse about the self-defense is actually coming from. And I know some people can actually use this against Islam. I will be an atheist when math explains the bank. Oh yeah, it is hard for math to actually explain the bank. I don't think we'll get to a level where mathematics itself would be able to explain it. I mean, there's physical theories about this, but there's always something that we get. Every year we get a new theory about something. I'll see how plants regrow themselves infinitely. That's just one thing, but it's the proof of God. Yeah, I mean, they do regrow themselves infinitely, as like to any length they can go. Or plants, when do plants stop growing, by the way? They do stop growing at some point though, right? It's not like, you mean infinitely as like they grow a lot, but not like fully infinitely. That wouldn't be possible. Or maybe number, like plants do grow in numbers a lot. Yeah, they have set growth stages and sizes. However, players can use an infinite. Oh shit, it's a video game that I pulled up, to be honest. Shit. Yeah, that's a good analogy actually. You can grow a plant like infinite number of times, to be honest, because you can always get the seed from the plant and then grow it. That is true. That is true. I 100% agree to that. Okay, I'm gonna pull up a theory that's gonna surprise some of you guys, by the way. Theory of collective consciousness. Guys. I'm gonna give you something that you have probably never heard in your own life. One thing you don't agree in hadith. I would say the age of Aisha, maybe. I would say because it's inconsistent among the hadith. So there's some of the philosophers that say the age of Aisha, which is kind of a debate among some of the Muslims or like the non-Muslims as well, especially for the people who try to attack Islam, because that would be the one thing that they would actually go for. It's kind of given as like 9 at the age of consummation, but then you read some of the other hadiths, it comes up as like 15, and then there's a hadith where it mentions it's 19, because if you link up to the age of Aisha to the age of her older sister Asma was 10 years older than her. She was 27, 28, according to some of the sources, when the migration to Medina actually happened, which means that Aisha would be 17 to 18 when the migration to Medina happened. And the Holy Prophet actually got wedded to Aisha 2 years after that when he consummated that. So it means at the age of wedding or the age of consummation, I can't exactly remember, it will be at least 19 or 20 years old. So that's the one thing I don't. But then there might be like some other things as well. Like I can't remember any examples on the top of my head. I'm not saying that I don't agree with the Hadisi. I'm saying that there's like 5 or 6 different authors that are writing it, right? So in that case, I would look for the ones that are mostly consistent between the authors. So if all of the authors are writing, explaining this incident in the same way, then I would say, okay, yeah, I mean that definitely has to be true. But if there's inconsistencies among the authors themselves, then for that instance, I would say it's kind of hard to actually believe that. I struggle with belly fat. Can you tell me about that? With belly fat, I would just say, man, do a lot of cardio exercises, that helps. And they say muscles actually burn your fat as well. So some people actually believe that I'm just gonna run and I'm just gonna do like the cardio exercises and I would be able to lose all the fat. And maybe that's the way, if you actually want to do it that way. But also like building muscles, lifting weights actually help with that, because if you have more muscles, you will burn fat faster. I've noticed that myself. So go to the gym, and if you have the belly fat, I would say do a lot of abs exercises and do the one with the weights as well, like the machines. Do that weight and do some other ab exercises, like you do the leg raises and a lot of other abs exercises. And even if you're doing cycling, that actually helps with it, because even though cycling is for the legs, you're putting a lot of pressure on the legs, but also the process of just like kicking, also like one of the bicycle exercise that you do on the mats, which is like you're doing the bicycles, right? Boom, boom. Cycling is not much different from that. So cycling also does help with that. For me, I believe it, since it is Sahih Bukhari, and also I don't see the problem. It was okay that in that time, and in Christianity they say Rebecca was 3 when she married Isaac. Was it okay in that time if Aisha was actually 9 years old when Holy Prophet consummated the marriage with her? I can't exactly know what was the culture during that time. I know that it must have been okay, because we know from the evidence that nobody actually had a problem with it. Like Abu Bakr was a father of Aisha. I mean, he would have said something at least, right? And it's not like the Holy Prophet was like the richest man on the planet during that time, that he has so much power. He wasn't the most influential person in terms of like the money and the wealth and stuff, right? So there were people who could have gone against it. Nobody actually went against it, which tells me that it was okay. Uh maybe the age of lifespan during that time was quite low as well, like 63 years old. Maybe the women were just getting mature at 9 years old, I guess. I don't know. So this is the thing, right? So we can't be sure about any of this. So if you are saying that, like, I do understand that. The age of Rebecca. Okay, the age of Rebecca. Actually, I was talking to one of my Christian friends the other day. I don't think she was 3. I think it's mentioned in like some of the older scripture that she was kind of 3. But if you look at the most of the scriptures are actually saying she was a teenager and she was actually lifting the weights. I brought it up last time because last time I was getting attacked by Islamophobes. There were like 5 people on my stream, maybe more than that were attacking me like straight up on like the Aisha incident. So that's why I had to bring it up. I was like, then you would be following the double standards, because it is given in some of the scriptures where the age is mentioned as 3. But it's actually not 3, because a 3-year-old would not be able to lift those bowls of water, like the buckets of water that she was lifting, and they were quite heavy. It's mentioned in the scripture. So she was able to lift it. So I think she would be a teenager. No, I don't run. It's never okay to be with a 3-year-old. Marcel, trust me. Yeah, I totally understand. It's never okay. Yeah, unless you're saying that yeah, human species is kind of different, right? Like the dogs, or like the, let's say, tigers grow up to be like fully grown old in like 2 years, 3 years old. But I doubt that it would happen with the human species. We know that the age wasn't working that way. Like, you were not fully getting blown up like a fully grown man at the age of 3. So it's definitely not okay. Okay, so all right. So what were we actually talking about, to be honest? Oh, the theory of collective consciousness. This is what I was going to talk about. So I actually want to see what Jalal and Marcel actually have a belief about the theory of collective consciousness. The theory of collective consciousness, introduced by Emily Durkheim, refers to the shared beliefs, ideas, and moral attitudes that act as a unifying force within a society. It acts as a social glue, shaping individuals' entity behavior and social. Dude, I want the scientific theory about this one. Explain how scientific. I wanted the scientific theory. It's giving me like a social theory. I don't want a social theory of collectiveness. Scientific theory of universe. Scientific theory of collective consciousness. Okay, yeah, neuroscience theory. I'm getting it actually. Now, collective consciousness is a possibility, but not a reality. I'm not really sure about it. Like, it's a possibility, but okay, let's look into this. By the way, neuroscience studies have found that brains synchronize when people interact or share experiences. So they synchronize. So when we were talking to each other, we would actually have synchronized experience. So maybe there's something to it. Maybe we're actually not so far distinct from each other. Using MRI indicating a biological basis of shared mental states. Even using the MRI, load of BS. Also using theory of collective consciousness is a load of BS. I'm not sure about it. Okay, collective intelligence, wisdom crowds. Groups often solve complex problems more accurately than individuals. This wisdom of crowds effect is a measurable form of collective intelligence. Studies demonstrate that moods and emotions spread through groups in real time, acting as a form of non-verbal collective consciousness. Dude, there's a guy, a very famous scientist, who actually came up with this. Reality is what you get, not what you want. Now, I completely agree with it. Reality is what you actually get, but maybe what we're getting is something that we don't know really, right? Like, how do we even know that this is true or not? Was it pseudoscience that was? Bro, I'm trying to find the exact same. I think it was pseudoscience theory. I think it was a pseudoscience theory, the collective consciousness. Oh yeah, I got it. I got it. Finally, I'm able to get it. The assertion that certain theories of consciousness, specifically integrated information theory, or pseudoscience, has sparked a significant ongoing feud in the scientific community, by the way. Okay. 100 prominent consciousness researchers signed a letter, signed that ITT is not well supported by science, it should not be presented. Suggests that consciousness is integrated information and can exist in many systems. So they are saying that consciousness can actually exist in many systems. Remember the seed analogy. Like, you do remember the seed analogy. That is true, right? That is true. Okay, so integrate information and can exist in many systems, not just brains. Consciousness can exist anywhere. Consciousness can exist in this protein bar, to be honest. We don't really know. Right? What is the way to actually determine what is conscious and what is not consciousness? Maybe it's not the same type of consciousness that we're looking for. Maybe it doesn't have the blood going through its veins. Maybe it's not thinking the same way. Critics point out that leads to panpsychism, the view that consciousness pervades the physical universe, including inanimate objects like an inactive grid of logic gates. Some critics I believe most of the scientists are a bit psycho. I mean, they have to be kind of a bit of psycho, right? Like, the apple fell on Newton, and he actually, instead of eating the apple, like I would have probably eaten the apple, he came up with the theory. He was like, fuck, gravity. Why is the apple falling? It's gravity. So I think they were a bit, to be honest, like there's a line. There's a fine line between being crazy and being smart as hell. I have bad genes, I have lower body fat, and I am a male. How to lose? Bad genes, I have lower body fat, and I'm a... Dude, lower body fat, isn't that a good thing, by the way? You mean you have lower body fat, or you want lower body fat? Because if you have lower body fat, there's no reason to actually put on more body fat, to be honest. That's a good one, right? But if you're struggling with the body fat, then my advice would be to actually lift. I think lifting just helps, man, and play a good sport, to be honest. It's one of the things, right? People go to the gym, and they try to lift weights and they try to put the cardio on, but then they get bored because there's not much brain in the gym that you're using. There is brain, by the way. I'm not actually I'm not actually making the people go away from the gym, to be honest. This idea that working out it actually wouldn't help you. Gyms are actually a very effective way of working on your body. And I think if you're playing the sports, it actually helps a lot as well, because then you can work on the specific muscles that you need to train for that sport. But I think I find it easier with the sport sometimes to keep the consistency. So like if you're playing badminton, or if you're playing, you're doing some sort of martial arts, it's more easier to keep the consistency because it's a game. It's like you going against somebody else. So it's more of like a challenge, right? And you'll be working with somebody else as well. Like if you're working, you're doing the martial arts and you're working on a technique, or if you have playing badminton, you're working with your partner on a technique. You're like, we're just going to be playing the smashes today because we need to learn how to smash faster. We need to learn how to smash, how to pick up the smash, right? So I find it much easier with the sports for people to actually keep the consistency, because I know there's people, for to keep the consistency in the gym, you have to have a really good discipline, and I don't know if many people can actually do that. You need to have like a friend who you're working out with as well, that can actually keep the motivation with you. If you're just going to the gym by yourself, and that is the only thing that you are looking forward to actually make you lose weight, I think it becomes harder for people sometimes, because then you might go to the gym like twice a week, 3 times a week, and which is not enough actually, because if you're really putting in the work, you should be doing it for 5 days if you're really serious about it. Swimming is really good. I would say swimming is a really good idea. But by the way, bro, it gives you the good shape as well. Swimming is very effective. And people actually enjoy swimming way more because you're jumping in the water. It's just a good feeling going to swimming. I think it's easier to keep the consistency, and maybe it's easier to challenge yourself in swimming as well, because then you can look at the targets, right? You can try to do more competitive swimming. You can be like, okay, I need to finish the whole lap in this many seconds today, or in this many minutes today. I need to be faster than yesterday. Or I can now I want to try like a different type of swimming. I want to do butterflies. I want to do this type of swimming. Most swimmers get extremely fat in an old age. Oh well, if they stop swimming, or if they stop doing something else, like you gotta do something else with the swimming. Swimming itself is not, it doesn't make the muscle stronger. I think it probably just helps you lose weight and give you a bit of a shape. Hike in the mountains, take interest in planes or birds to free your mind. Yeah, Chris, I completely agree with this. Also, the reason I'm saying it's harder to go to the gym like 5 times a day is because gyms are closed spaces. It's a closed space. You're lifting weights and you're getting sweaty. There's not much in the nature that you could enjoy during the time. Hiking the mountains is much easier. You can actually keep the consistency much more with the hiking in the mountains. You could do it for longer times as well. Um, but for me, just playing a sport just works, man. Like anytime I feel like I have to lose weight, I just go back to, there's I know there's sports that I'm decent at. I can go to badminton, I can do martial arts like MMA, there's wrestling, there's boxing, there's all those other sports. Like there's, you kind of have to move. I think there's more sort of like social communication, social interaction. You become part of something. Like if you're training at a gym, it feels more like a, it's a hobby, but at the same time it's kind of a habit. And it's a kind of a, um what do you call it, like a connection to something. It's connection to something bigger that you're part of. It's a society. Breathing techniques do help only if you do it a lot. Okay, I'll do the breathing techniques as well. Do they help with the weight loss as well, by the way, when we're talking about the breathing techniques? Okay, guys, let's talk about the scientific theory of simulations. There's not much, to be honest, there's not much information on Google about the theory of collective consciousness. It is very popular, but most of the high energy scientists actually believe that this world is not real. This world is not real. There's something outside the realm of space and time, but then there's theory of simulation that is a little bit more popular when it comes to actually researching on Google, because Google wouldn't put a lot of information about the collective consciousness. I don't know if it's against their agenda or whatever. It helps to heal the lungs by giving it rest. Okay, maybe that's a good one, actually. Yeah, because your lungs are not breathing the air as much, so they're getting the rest, which is good actually. That's why fasting helps as well with some of the organs, let's say, like with your heart, with your lungs. So all of your organs are actually taking the energy when you start fasting, because your organs know that they wouldn't be taking as much energy. They start working less. And also, dude, when you're eating the food, some of your organs are working to actually digest the food, right? So you're also giving rest to those organs, so it's good. So I would say fasting as well. Burning fat, I don't know. We can do a bit of research about it. Okay, simulation theory. Simulation hypothesis proposes that reality is an artificial simulation. What do you guys think about this? Artificial simulation. Likely a computer program created by a technologically advanced civilization. Popularized by Nick Bostrom, it argues that if future civilizations have the computing power to run high fidelity simulations of their ancestors, we're likely to be Sims rather than having in base reality. And by the way, I just heard a scientist the other day saying that this world is like a simulation. By the way, somebody is running a simulation on this world. That's what it is. By the way, um, okay, Bostrom's trilemma proposes one of the three things is true. Humanity goes extinct before creating simulated reality. Future civilizations are not interested in running simulations, or we are almost certainly living in a simulation. Some theories, such as Dr. Melvin Bobson, argues that the universe is made of information, not just matter energy, citing the second law of infodynamics, which suggests that the information behaves like a physical component. So he's saying information itself is like a physical component. You know what else is what else could be true? It's your language. It's the sound. That could also be like a physical thing. You guys know that? By the way, do you guys know that? You know what God says in the Bible actually? God said something and the world was created. The word itself was like a being. I'm just going to try to pull it out from the Bible because I don't want to misquote it. But even in Quran, it says God said, and the world was created. What was the actual Arabic of that? Fuck. Uh, is the word of God a physical? The word of God is generally understood in Christian theology as a spiritual doctrine rather than a physical one, though it interacts with us. Is the authoritative voice of God. Uh, God used his spoken word. God used his spoken word to bring the physical world into existence. That's what they're saying actually. Guy told, if we stop breathing, we don't die first, we just lose our consciousness. So air is the consciousness. Oh, if it's, my God, man, what if the air is the consciousness? Holy shit. Okay, let me just pull it up. Like, we want to look at the facts first. We want to do a fact check. If we stop breathing, do we lose our consciousness first? Okay, we're just gonna pull it up, guys. We're just gonna pull it up right now. We're gonna find out. You lose consciousness first. That is insane. What an addition to my information, actually. Holy shit. We are dying from losing the consciousness. Actually, if you stop breathing, the brain is deprived of oxygen, leading to a rapid loss of consciousness well before permanent brain death occurs. Dude, I thought there was maybe something with the lungs, because your lungs are not like, now there's no breathing going into the lungs, so we're not actually taking any oxygen in. So I thought maybe it was going to be like a lungs failure. But again, you don't die from the lung failure, right? Do you die from the lung failure? The only reason is because it affects the brain. Ocean Eyes, how is it going? I'm good. How is simulation theory different than Zungai's dream of Plato's cave? Oh, it's not very different, actually. It's not very different. I'm going to pull up the Plato's cave theory, but I think it's not very different. I've seen Alex O'Connor actually mentioning something like this. I am good. How are you? Yes, I am great as well. We're just going through some of the theories of consciousness. Okay, if you stop breathing, the brain is deprived of oxygen, leading to a rapid loss of consciousness well before permanent brain death occurs. As oxygen levels drop, the brain, which is the most sensitive organ, begins to function improperly, leading to dizziness, confusion, and the unconsciousness, often known as passing out or a shallow water blackout. I mean, that's why when the jiu-jitsu guys have the chokes around your neck, you kind of pass out from the lack of consciousness, actually, right? Hey, do you remember me, Charger Bluers? Yeah, I do remember you popped into one of the streams. I don't exactly remember what we talked about last time, but I do remember you popping in. Okay, so the Plato's cave theory. Plato's cave theory. Was the allegory of the cave, right? So it is a consciousness case closed. Well, I'm not gonna close a case like this. I mean, it could also be that your brain is not functioning properly because your brain does need oxygen. But why does your brain need oxygen? Is it for the consciousness or is it for just staying alive? I don't really know about that. We can do a bit of research on that as well. Mm, 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 mm. Okay, allegory of the cave is one of the most famous metaphors. It describes the journey of the human soul from a state of ignorance to enlightenment and the truth. Um, Socrates asked his student to imagine a group of prisoners who have lived in a dark cave since childhood. The prisoners are chained by their legs and necks, facing a wall. Behind them, a fire burns. Between the fire and the prisoners, people carry various objects and puppets that cast shadows onto the wall the prisoners are facing a shadow reality because they have never seen anything else. The prisoners believe these flickering shadows and their echoes are the only one reality. One prisoner is freed and forced to stand up and turn around. At first, the light from the fire is painful and blinding. He's eventually dragged out of the cave into the sunlight. Enlightenment. Once outside, his eyes slowly adjust. He first sees shadows, then reflections in the water, then real objects, and finally the sun itself. He realizes the sun is the source of all the light and the life, and that his life in the cave was a mere illusion. Out of pity, a freed man returns to the cave to inform the others. However, his eyes are no longer used to the darkness, and he appears blind and foolish to the prisoners. They reject the truth, believing that his journey has harmed him and they may kill anyone who tries to free them. That is kind of true, bro. That is kind of true because if you're gonna live in your small circle and you're not aware of what's happening outside, I mean, you're gonna be blind to all of this, and that is not a reality for. So the reality for you is only the circle that you're living around. So yeah, that is kind of the same thing, to be honest. Um, Air is the consciousness. It works in layers. Yeah, I mean, probably it works in layers, to be honest. It works in layers. Let's just check it out, actually. Mozzarella? No, I don't. Does air have any consciousness? Based on the current scientific understanding, they are not agreeing with us. By the way, the scientists are not agreeing with us, but we don't have agreed. We don't have to agree with the scientists. We can just be our own or having our own understanding of things, and then we can maybe enlighten scientists with something. We can write our own papers. Air does not possess consciousness. Consciousness is widely understood to be an emergent property of complex biological systems like brains rather than a fundamental property of matter. While air contains necessary molecules like oxygen for sustaining the brains that produce consciousness. So air is contributing to producing the consciousness according to the scientists, not the consciousness itself. It lacks the nervous system or structural complexity required to experience awareness. Consciousness requires biological complexity. Oxygen in the air feed brain cells, which in turn produce conscious experience. The air itself is just a passive, not conscious mixture of gases. Okay, we're going to the dude. Where's the consciousness theory that I was looking at actually? Okay, that's also an interesting one. Quantum connections, right? I was talking about like the theory of simulation actually. Quantum connections. Supporters claim that quantum mechanics, where particles exist in a superposition of states until observed, resembles the way rendering is optimized in the video games to display only what the player sees. Okay, I don't know about that one, to be honest, right? Okay, if scientists are actually saying that, maybe they must have seen something that made sense over there. Theoretical arguments against. Critics suggest that the fundamental nature of reality may not be fully computable, as suggested by Tocque's undefinability theorem and Chaitin's incompleteness theorem, implying that an algorithm computer-driven simulation cannot fully replicate the reality. Okay. Okay, and then there's something about the structure of the atom itself and the conscious mind. They're saying that we don't have the capacity to produce anything like that with the technological development that we have. The sheer computational power required to simulate a universe at the Planck scale, including every atom and conscious mind, is generally considered beyond human technological development. So I don't know how much power do you actually need to be able to do this, but does it go against the theory that it could be powered through if somebody had that amount of power? Though not impossible in principle for a superior future civilization. So they actually believe that a future civilization might be able to do that. So it's not actually kind of like a crazy idea. Okay, what do I do? What do I do? I come back to the scientific miracles in Quran again. Deep sea internal waves. There's deep sea internal waves. The Quran describes deep seas covered by waves upon which are other waves, which aligns with the scientific discovery of internal waves below the ocean surface. Yeah, I think there's something about that as well. Like there's deep sea waves, upon which are other waves, which aligns with the scientific theory of internal waves below the ocean surface. So then there's ocean waves below. There's internal waves below the ocean surface. Are these internal waves, by the way, underneath the surface, like the surface of the ocean itself? Wouldn't that be like an earthquake or something like this? I don't really understand all of it. Faith isn't dependent on miracles. It's not only dependent on miracles. I mean, miracles are part of it, but I mean, miracles is a way to actually convince people, right? Like when Jesus was actually born, this is the document that I'm actually giving for Quran. Like Jesus was speaking from the cradle because people actually thought that if Mary was such a pure woman, how did she have a child without even touching another man? And then Mary comes up with a child, and people are actually accusing Mary of doing things, and then Jesus actually starts speaking from the baby Jesus, the toddler Jesus is actually speaking, right? So that was one of the miracles. Then there's other miracles mentioned in the Quran where Jesus is actually using like a clay and he's making a bird. He's shaping a bird with the clay, and then that bird actually flies away. So he's producing life into it. Then there's miracles of Moses. Like Moses had a staff. He drops the staff into the sea, and the sea divides into two places, into two different seas, and then there's like a path in the middle, and he's able to go through it. So I think miracles, although miracles are not the only thing that you are looking for because you're just looking for the belief in God, but miracles are sort of the ways, I think, the pathway for the people to believe in God during that time. Faith and hard work gets you into heaven. It does get into heaven. Hard work, definitely, for sure. Jesus' story is not very convincing. I laughed at it as a child. Oh, which theory of Jesus are you talking about? The one that Jesus was actually speaking from the cradle? Yeah, I mean, I can understand it, bro. Like, this doesn't actually make sense. So it could also be that it was like a figurative thing. So it could be a figurative thing that when actually Jesus was born, maybe he wasn't literally speaking. Uh, Maybe it meant something else. Maybe the way he looked like. I don't really know. Horrible Herod violated the Virgin Mary after Joseph was unable to pay his taxes. He left Mary for dead. Yet she lived and was pregnant with the king's baby. All else is a lie. Viking Lloyd, you're not a Christian actually. Okay, sorry, my bad. If you had a conversation, we had this conversation before. Sorry, I can't remember actually. So you're saying it was somebody else. So it wasn't Joseph. It was because Joseph was quite old during that time, right? So you're saying horrible Herod violated the Virgin Mary. So he is the one who's the father of Jesus actually. The fact that people took the story so seriously was laughable. You know, to be honest, I'm not taking anything with like the with 100% seriousness because these are the things that happened 2000 years ago, like 1400 years ago in case of Islam, or 2000 years ago in case of Christianity, or 3000 years ago in case of Moses. um but if there's like a consistency among the people from different places, then I can consider it, to be honest, right? It's very hard to say like what exactly happened. I don't really know about this, but it's what I'm taking out of it. The fact Okay, so let's try to find this out actually, because I don't even know who the Herod was. Also, do you like the violence in the religion, in some of the religions, like people are actually killing each other for it? That's kind of crazy, right? You are your ancestors. If you're here now, you were there then. I mean, we came from our ancestors. That's kind of true. That's kind of true, right? Okay, so if you're referring to Herod the Great, okay, Herod one or Herod the Great was a Roman Jewish client king of the Herodian kingdom of Judah. He's known for his colossal building projects. Okay, that's what he's doing. Among these works are the rebuilding of the Second Temple in Jerusalem and the expansion of its base, the Western Wall being part of it. But I think he must have been way before Jesus actually. So 37 to 29 BC, 24 BC. What's his incident with Jesus actually? What did Herod do to Jesus? Mayor, Walking Lord, you talk shit. As soon as I knew the priests are never married single guys, I knew something was up with the church. Okay, I'm not fully agreeing with the way the church is actually running. I'm not sure about it. Like I know some of the people actually ask money for the charity and stuff, and then they end up like spending all the money on themselves. Um. Okay, so King Herod the Great attempted to kill the infant Jesus by ordering the massacre of the innocents. That's what he's doing. Oh, dude. Okay, he's one of those guys, by the way. And there was a guy in Moses' time as well. That was what was he called, by the way? I know his word. I know the word in Arabic, by the way. He was called Pharaoh. So Pharaoh was a guy. He was like the biggest villain in the era of Moses. He ordered in that time to kill all the little children because somebody told him that there was going to be a kid that was gonna live long to actually take over your kingdom. That's what he would do actually. So then he did that. But I didn't know there was somebody during Jesus' time who was actually attempted to kill the Jesus by ordering the massacre of the innocents, the murder of all Bethlehem boys aged 2 and under after being outwitted by the Magi. Later, his son, Herod Antipas, mocked Jesus during his trial before the crucifixion, dressing him in a royal robe. Okay, upon hearing, they live lavish life, trust nothing Christian about them. Yes, some of them actually do. Do you know Drewski, by the way? Do you know the skits that he's actually been producing? There was like a church skit that he put where it's like, there's a woman, he's not getting impregnated. He's like, I'm going to impregnate her with the word of God. I'm going to impregnate her with the word of God. I'm going to impregnate her with the word of God. I'm going to impregnate all of you with the word of God. And then he's doing worms. He's literally doing worms on the stage. He was getting a lot of hate for that as well because some people actually thought that he was mocking Christianity when he's not actually mocking the religion. He's saying that that's how people are sort of like abusing the religion and they shouldn't be doing this. That's kind of his point. Archaeology dates the death of Herod the Great between 48 BC and 4 AD, and Jesus' birth is also dated between the same time frame. Yeah, that is true. That is true. I agree that. I only saw his like the spouses, and they were like 37 BC. That's way before Christ, right? So I was like, okay, what is going on here? But he lived a long time. I can see that. Okay, upon hearing from the Magi that a king of the Jews was born, Herod, fearing a threat to his throne, because there was a lot of stories that are coming after out of the Jesus, right? Of Jesus's life, because Jesus, when he was born, he was actually talking from the cradle, according to the people, right? Okay, here's the thing. I was guys, just like out of curiosity, like I have a question actually. So I'm a Muslim, right? I had a discussion with my Christian friend. He believes in the Bible and all of this stuff. Actually, he's one of the security guards at the places that I actually work, and he said that Bible is actually very consistent about what Christians of that time actually believed about Jesus. So it wasn't so the Jews of that time, they weren't trying to kill Jesus because they were afraid that he was a prophet or like he was claiming to be a Messiah. It was because they actually thought that he was God, that he was claiming to be God. That was his main claim. Why do you think many people actually believe that? Was it because he was actually carrying on the miracles? So now I know that you guys believe that we shouldn't be taking miracles on the face values of like Jesus being able to do this, or if he's able to make the birds out of the clay and then the birds are flying away, or if he's like a toddler and he's talking. Then what was that was actually convincing them? Sort of like, why were there so many stories coming out like this boy is special, or even Herod the Great? He is that guy's probably rich, right? Herod the Great. He's probably got all the kingdom to himself. He's got all the spouses. There's people following him, and Jesus is born. And Jesus is not like a. I don't know if he was like rich or not. I don't really know. I don't know how good his parents like how. I don't think Miriam was like a rich person or anything like that. And then he's getting threatened by Jesus. He's basically saying that he was threatened that that's the guy who's a Messiah or he's gonna so he attempts to kill the infant Jesus by ordering the massacre of the innocents after being outwitted by the Magi, right? So that is kind of crazy, right? Like he's feeling threatened by Jesus, who is just a toddler, by the way. So this is something I don't understand. Austin 3:16. Austin 3:16. Whoop your ass. Stone cold. Stone cold. Stone cold. Stunner. Jesus. It was John 3:16, right? That he changed to Austin 3:16. Jesus fulfilled the law. Muhammad preached the coming of the law, and I wrote it. Crime equals punishment. Jesus did not introduce anything new. Philosophy predicts him with hundreds of years, if not thousands. Caesar was Lord of Lords. Germanicus was Lord of Kings. Jesus was the King of Kings, the third most powerful person in the Rome. So Jesus was the King of Kings, the third most powerful. Are you talking about like the worldly power, or are you talking about the power that he was getting from God? Because I don't think that you actually believe in like Jesus as a prophet or like as a God, right? So that must be something that Jesus was at that time. Like the power that he was holding was because he had the money and all of this. But how did he get the money? Because I don't think his family background was very strong. I don't believe so. Okay, was Jesus rich when he was born? Okay, Jesus was not. Jesus only knew about life because he was reading? Okay, but why was he considered so special during that time? Why was it? So you're saying Jesus was son of King Herod. So King Herod is actually asking people to massacre all the boys because he's threatened by Jesus. That's what he's asking them to do. How is he a son? How is Jesus a son of Herod? And just Herod himself is actually asking people to massacre him. So you're saying Herod actually made up all of this story. So Herod is actually conspiring everything in his mind. And he's like, okay, I'm a rich guy. I'm going to protect Jesus in the backstage, but I'm not going to tell everyone about this. So like the world is not aware of it, but Herod is playing like a big game because it's controlling the system from the back. Is that something you're coming up with? Most of the people were not even able to read or write or to reason. I mean, most of the people were probably stupid in that time. I mean, what we don't understand is that science was actually advancing to some extent because you had Aristotle way before Jesus. Actually, Aristotle was like thousands of years ago, but Aristotle was aware of, and even Plato and Aristotle were very smart people that were actually aware of many. They had the philosophies about the God, and they had the philosophies about how the universe was working, and they were very advanced into science as well. But then not everybody was actually at that point. Horrible Herod violated the Virgin Mary after Joseph was unable to pay his taxes to Mary when she lived. He was the Porphyr king of the Holy Land, the third most powerful person in Rome. Okay, Jesus was not born into a rich family, but rather into poverty. Mary and Joseph offered 2 pigeons for their purification, a sacrifice allowed for those who could not afford a lamb. So they couldn't even afford a lamb. They were giving 2 pigeons, signaling a low economic status. While the wise men brought expensive gifts later, the immediate circumstances of his birth were humble. Okay, I'm going back to Herod the Great, right? Upon hearing the magi that a king of the Jews was born, Herod, fearing a threat to his throne, ordering the execution of all male children. So he was the most powerful person of the Jews at that time in Bethlehem and in surrounding areas. Jesus escaped because his parents were warned to a dream to flee to the. So his parents were actually warned in a dream to flee to Egypt. That's when he like flee to Egypt. Joseph was his stepfather. All right. I mean, this theory kind of like if you're coming up with this theory, I mean, I can look more into it. During Jesus' trial, Pontius Pilate sent Jesus to Herod Antipas, ruler of Galilee in Jerusalem, who was pleased to see him and hoped to see a miracle. When Jesus did not answer his questions, Herod and soldiers mocked him, dressed him as a role. So why were there so many stories written in the Gospels that actually negate this idea? Viking, I know you're coming up with this idea, but the Bible actually goes against it. And it's not like there's one scripture Bible. There's the Gospel of Matthew, there's the Gospel of Luke, there's the Gospel of Mark, there's the Gospel of John, and then there's the Gospel of Thomas as well. None of those Gospels are actually mentioning anything about Herod the Great being father of Jesus Christ. I've never actually read about it. I mean, was Herod the Great father of Jesus? Maybe if I AI, you might be able to pull up something. Father of Jesus? Father of Jesus? Can we at least agree Herod wanted Jesus dead? Yeah, I mean, I can agree, but there's so many theories that are coming up. But according to what I'm reading right now, Herod actually wanted Jesus dead, yes. But if he was his father, why would he want him dead? Marcel, what are you saying? Read my comments. Marcel, your comments are getting filtered. YouTube is not even allowing your comments. Like I read your last comment. Your last comment was Jesus only knew about life because he was reading. Most of the people were not even able to read or write or to reason. Yeah, I know. I completely understand it. I completely agree with this. Many of the people at that time did not have access to, like, we didn't have the books like this, right? I don't know how when the civilization got advanced to a point where we started writing books, and like it was very common knowledge for the people. Because he was an illegitimate heir to the throne. Okay, I've not been able to find the story anywhere, but I'm gonna have more look into it. So if I can find something like that, maybe if it's like a big conspiracy theory, maybe Google might not even allow it because they wouldn't want people to know this, right? Okay, okay. Uh, he was the Roman appointed king of Judea who reigned during Jesus Christ's birth. According to the Gospel of Matthew, Herod perceived Jesus as a threat to his throne. So we can agree to that. Jesus was a threat to his throne, but why was the Jesus threat to his throne? It's a discussion that we're having right now, right? And ordered the massacre of the innocents, causing Joseph and Mary to flee with Jesus to Egypt. Herod is the tyrant who sought to kill the infant Jesus after being told the king that Jesus was born. Herod died in 4 BC, setting the last possible date for Jesus' birth. Herod was a murderous ruler who killed many in his own family to protect his throne, but he's unrelated to Jesus. So he killed many people in his family because he was threatened of the throne, that they would to protect his throne, but he's unrelated to Jesus. Following Herod's death, his kingdom was divided, and among his sons, Archelaus, Antipas, and Philip. And you believe Antipas was the one. You believe Antipas was the one who was actually the cousin of Jesus. That's what you were saying something about. Um, Seems as plausible as Parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis to me. Parthenogenesis, is that like a theory? YouTube censors anything critical regarding a certain group of people. Probably. Okay, parthenogenesis. Sorry, Chris, I didn't get it the first time. Sorry, asexual reproduction, right? So do you not believe that asexual reproduction can actually happen in the human beings? I know it doesn't really happen, but according to science, we have some evidence that there was like a I don't know if it was lost. It was like a couple of years ago. We had like a birth that was just with one parent. That was just with the female that actually happened. Virgin birth is not a natural reproductive method in humans, as genomic imprinting requires genetic contributions from both parents for viable development. While rare spontaneous partial parthenogenetic events occur, they usually result in benign ovarian tumors. Only one highly unusual case was documented in 1995. Um, a boy was found to be a chimera with some of his white blood cells derived solely from his mother, while other cells are formed. Wasn't there like a whole birth? There was a birth that happened. Why is it saying no natural viable asexual reproduction resulting in living humans baby has never been documented, while asexual reproduction occurs in some vertebrates like fish, reptiles? Dude, what was that birth that happened? Maybe it wasn't like asexual reproduction, but maybe something else must have happened or something like this. Has there ever been a baby born without a father? Without a father. That must have been something else that must have happened. Okay, God had many children: Isaac, Joseph of Egypt, John the Baptist, to name three. Uh, well, that is true in the Bible as well. I don't know about all of them, by the way, but there were people that were actually mentioned as the children of God, which many people actually use as like a criticism to Christianity, saying that the belief that Jesus is literally the Son of God is not true, because God has referred to some other people as his children as well, which could just be like we all came from God, not necessarily that we are the literal children of God. I remember hearing this, a baby with only one DNA set. How is that even possible though, right? But I do remember there's something happened, like there was a person that was born without a father. So I'm looking into it. Basically, a human baby requires sperm and an egg. We know that, making conception without a father not possible in the traditional sense. However, cases exist involving donor sperm, legal or extremely rare scientific anomalies. What are we talking about? Because millions are born via sperm donor or surrogate. Bro, that's a completely different thing. Don't tell me about this one. Sperm donor. Google is messing up in my mind right now. Scientific anomaly. A 1995 case described a boy with cells, white blood cells, lacking a father's DNA due to a rare event where an unfertilized egg began dividing before fertilization. Legal fatherless births. In 2017, a child in India was born via donor sperm with a blank space for the father on the birth certificate. But that's a different thing. There are four types of fathers: step, biological, adopted, and heavenly. We all have the same heavenly father. Heavenly father, we all have the same heavenly father. That is true. 100% agree. Google is pretty much censors anything interesting. Yeah, they do, bro. They do that. And to be honest, kind of YouTube is doing that with our comment section as well. Like, you put something inappropriate according to them, and they will censor it. And TikTok is even more soft. I miss the internet we had 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it was more pro free speech, I would say. Okay. Okay, I cannot find any evidence of like person actually being born without having a dad. It is true in a case in 1995 that the person did not have the DNA of the father, because the mother cells, they actually started dividing themselves before actually fertilizing. So that process actually did happen. Where is that? Shit. Yeah, so he received some of the white blood cells derived solely from his mother, while other cells were normal. But again, that's not like a complete proof, because while he's deriving most of the cells from his mother's white blood cells, but the rest of the cells are quite normal. They're divided equally between the father and the mother. So I don't really know what's going on. Okay, so what were we talking about? This is a very interesting topic that we discussed today, by the way, guys. Between Jesus and like the Judah and okay, so I'm actually going to look into the more conspiracy theories of Herod the Great. Is there a conspiracy theory? Josh, the people in these days understand the claim of Jesus being the Son of God as literal. It was for that very reason they had him crucified. That's why they crucified him. So you're saying Jesus wasn't actually claiming to be God, and they crucified him because he thought that he was claiming to be God, and that is a representation of what we are doing today. What did I misread? I remember in the beginning you could find all sort of crazy stuff on Google. Which part are you talking about, Marcel? They understood, but did they believe? No, they didn't actually believe that. That's a problem, right? Marcel, did I misread something about the parthenogenesis? Okay, guys, we're going back to the conspiracy theory about the Herod being Jesus's father. Okay, yes, there is a fringe speculative theory often discussed in alternative history or speculative biblical circles that suggests a connection between the Herodian dynasty and the birth of Jesus. No one believed it. Jesus turned his whole phenomenon into a religion, And so But here's the thing, right? So you're saying, but these are like two different things, right? So are we saying that Jesus actually claimed to be the God, and then people of that time did not actually believe that Jesus was a God? So that's why they actually crucified Jesus, because he was claiming to be the God. But they said, "You're just lying. You're not the God. We're going to crucify you. And if you are God, you should be able to make alive." And then Jesus dies, and then people of that time actually started believing into this. Um, other thing could be that Jesus is not actually claiming to be the God, because there was something. There's quite a few lines where Jesus is saying there's a guy who is injured, or he's having some sort of problems, and Jesus like, oh, I'm gonna forgive you. I'm gonna forgive you. And then there's people around him, and they're like, oh, they're kind of like a little bit amazed, like, how is Jesus gonna forgive them? So how do you have the authority to actually forgive them? Because you're just a human being, right? And um some of the people actually believe that when he's saying that he's going to forgive them, he's kind of lying, because he doesn't have the ability to forgive them. Only God can actually forgive them. But Jesus is actually, some people actually say that God was actually speaking through Jesus, because Jesus actually came in the form of God here. So now he has the authority to forgive them. So that's why he says that he's a God. And this has been given in like many of the gospels. So personally, I don't believe in Jesus being a God. But if I talk to my Christian friends and they have knowledge of the Gospels, they actually believe that cumulatively, all of the Gospels actually believe that Jesus was a God. At least that's what he was trying to say. So are we saying that Jesus claimed to be the God, and that's why people actually turned against him? Or are we saying that Jesus wasn't even claiming to be the God? He was just claimed to be the Messiah of that time, and then people actually mistook it. People actually misread, misinterpreted what he was trying to say, and then made him turn him into a god in the religion. That's what they did. No one has superpowers. It's just a fact. Do you believe in any superpowers theory, by the way? And superpowers is not something out of this world. Superpower could just be that something the science hasn't discovered yet, like uh I don't know, like telepathy superpower. Like we have not discovered it. Like if you read the CIA documents, there's not like proper evidence of it. But if you look at the CIA declassified documents, it actually says that CIA was actually working. CIA was actually working on the telepathic powers. They're actually also working on like moving the objects. There's so many things that CIA was actually able to do. They also have like the evidence of like a few aliens as well. So what do you think about that? Like those sort of superpowers, like the ability to communicate messages, or the ability to like move the metallic objects using your own energy, if you have the control over the energy. What about that? Okay, I'm just gonna quickly go through the fringe, that speculative theory that we were talking about, like Herod being the father of Jesus. We don't know about that. We're just gonna go through it. Okay, it suggests a connection between the Herodian dynasty and the birth of Jesus, with some versions proposing that King Herod the Great, or a member of his family, was the biological father of Jesus, or that Jesus was a grandson of Herod. Uh, this is not a widely accepted historical or theological view. I just want to see the evidence of this. I want to see like some sort of text or some sort of like scripture of that time, like a reference that I can have. A more detailed version of this theory, explored by authors like Graham Phillips, suggests Mary was not a poor peasant, but perhaps the daughter of a high priest named Matthias. Okay, which was connected to Herod's court. In this scenario, Mary might have been involved with one of the Herod's sons, such as Antipater or Herod, to making Jesus a grandson of Herod the Great. The king of the Jews connection. Proponents argue that this theory makes sense of Pontius Pilate's action during Jesus' trial. If Jesus were a descendant of Herod, he would have led a legitimate claim to the title, King of the Jews, which would explain why Pilate asked him the question and was reluctant to condemn him. Mary and the Herodian court. The theory often suggests that Mary, being pregnant with a child who was not Joseph's, was not cast out by her community because the father was not a powerful member of the Herodian family, allowing her to escape the shame reality of such a situation. Okay, I would really think that we can actually come to any conclusion when it comes to like Herod the Great and the connection with Jesus. It's very hard to find. But let's go to the theory of that I was talking about, like CIA experimenting, doing some sort of experiments where you're controlling the matter, or you are talking to people in a different way. No. The last one that I can see is like, we keep it real. This is the last comment that I can see. Okay, there's telepathic behavior that I was talking about, right? So declassified CIA documents revealed that U.S. intelligence community and military seriously investigated telepathy, remote viewing, and other psychic phenomena for decades, primarily using the Cold War. The researchers focus on potential espionage applications, 1920, 1970, influencing human behavior as well. Motor movement control. Okay, motor movement control. This is like the first one, right? Documents suggest experiments were conducted on influencing both voluntary and involuntary muscle movements through telepathy. Some Soviet research sought to use telepathic suggestions to induce hypnosis from a distance or to affect the behavior of subjects without their knowledge. Bro, I think there's videos about this as well, by the way. With telepathy, there is actually videos on the YouTube that are actually showing persons actually doing controlling matters with their own like hands and stuff. Some society research sought to use telepathic suggestions to induce hypnosis from a distance or to affect the behavior of subjects without their knowledge. Scales for humans so we could actually breathe underwater. Do you know this theory, by the way? They should probably do something like this, but even if you can't breathe underwater, man, everything is kind of so slow underwater, right? Like you swim slowly underwater. The ability to function underwater is kind of like, it's difficult to function underwater. It's not There's not much you can do underwater. So I don't really know if that would actually help humans in the long run to actually live underwater. But I know there's theories that you can actually evolve yourself to live underwater, and there might be some tribes in the past that could be past civilizations that were probably living underwater, and you probably have lost the ability because you haven't been underwater for like a long time. So um we know that there is a tribe that actually has the ability to live underwater longer than us human beings. I'm not saying that they're living constantly like underwater, but they have more of an ability to actually live underwater. There is a tribe at some place. um the CIA investigated Soviet attempts to use technological devices to enhance ESP and telepathic communications. Okay, so there's something about the Soviet submarine tracking. Psychics were reportedly used to attempt to track Soviet submarines. Wow. So they were reportedly used to attempt to track Soviet submarines. Tests were conducted where subjects used remote viewing to describe the layout and content of foreign embassy code rooms. Remote viewers were tasked with locating objects such as the Ark of the Covenant and providing descriptions of hidden distant sites. This is quite incredible if you think about it, actually. Um, but let me look at the tribe, actually. Let me look at the tribe. Because I can remember, not exactly, not distinctly, but I can remember that there was something that I read about like tribes underwater. Okay, the Bajau, known as sea nomads, I hope that they are not a fictional thing. I hope that's an actual thing, actually, are an indigenous group in Southeast Asia. They've isolated the genes, I think. Are you saying that happens through the natural selection because they have to go through those circumstances, or are you saying somebody actually did experimentation and they did that on purpose, like isolate the genes? Uh, if it's like an evolution theory, then yes, probably yes. Like human beings are very good at adapting. Like we're one of those animals. Like other animals are okay, decent at adapting. They do make the adaptations as well, but I think the human beings have like shown that over a period of time that we can adapt to anything. Um, who spend most of their lives in boats or stilt houses, renowned for their incredible free diving skills, right? They have developed genetic adaptations. So genetic adaptations, including spleens that are about 50% larger than allowing them to dive up to 200 feet. Dive up to 200 feet. Well, are they saying allowing them to dive up to 200 feet? Does that mean that they go 200 feet down and hold their breath for over 10 minutes? Bro, that is incredible, by the way. I know the world record for holding the breath underwater is actually like 29 minutes now, but holding the breath for like 10 minutes for like a normal person, because for us, I think it's like 1 minute. We don't even do more than 1 minute. If we want to do like 5 to 6 minutes, we have to train seriously for that. But for those guys to be able to hold under the breath underwater for like 10 minutes, that's incredible. PDIOA gene enlarges spleen. Okay, that's the gene that actually enlarges spleen. Okay, got it. Adaptation. Researchers found genetic mutations in the badger that result in larger spleens. A larger spleen releases more oxygenated red blood cells, functioning like a biological scuba tank. Basically, they've created a gene oxygenated that releases more oxygenated blood cells, and it actually works like a scuba tank itself. So something out of your own genetics that works as something out that functions outside your body is remarkable. They have lived for centuries, such as sea nomads, fishing and collecting resources from the sea floor to survive. Holy shit, my charging is getting low again. We're gonna put something on charging. They use traditional wooden goggles and weight belts to free dive, staying underwater for extended periods. Why are they staying underwater? This is what I don't understand actually. Like, do they just like the vibe of water? What is that? They live in on or small traditional boats called lepa and stilt houses constructed over the water. So that actually, man, that's got to be like hard life, like living under the water. Going underwater for some things, but then living on water, like in the boats, they've got the houses. I can't type anything. Can you see my comment? Dude, I can't see all of your comments, Marcel, by the way. YouTube is removing a lot of your comments, trust me. Uh so they created their own sunscreen. They're deeply connected to the ocean and have unique colorful traditions like local rituals. Mm. Um It's crazy. Okay, who is interested in the human evolution, by the way? So human evolution is the dude. Why are they saying it's a 6 to 7 million year process of change from ape-like ancestors? Key traits like bipedalism emerged from over 4 million years ago, followed by increased brain size, tool use, and complex cultural evolution was not linear, but a complex branching and braided stream of multiple species, mostly in Africa. Uh, I mean, humans have come a long way. I mean, they're saying the human actually started evolving like 7 million years ago. I don't know what is the earliest that you find the evidence for like advanced human beings as like us in terms of like just looking like an advanced human being, or like the when did the brain stop growing actually? Mm. Roughly 7 million years ago, the human lineage diverged from common ancestors with chimpanzees. Early hominins lived about 4 million years ago. Key traits including walking on two legs. Chimpanzees were actually doing that. We're talking about Australopithecus. Early hominins, then you have genus Homo, emerged from around 2.4 to 2.8 million years ago. Homo habilis is known for early stone tool use. So 2.4, 2.8 million years ago, humans were actually using tools, which is kind of insane. But when you think about the chimpanzees and when you think about the gorillas, they are using. There's definitely evidence of them using tools as well. So it would probably not be as crazy as we think it is. And by the way, we didn't come from the chimpanzees or the gorillas. We came from like a common ancestor that they came from. I I'm poor. I only have a phone. Yeah, I mean I'm probably on the same page. I have a phone as well. Homo erectus appeared about 1.8 million years ago. Is that the one that people are actually saying is has the same size brain as like a human being? Like Homo erectus was as smart as a human being. When you actually just looking at the brain power, not the advancements that we made because we had way more time to actually progress, featuring larger brains and body proportions similar to modern humans. Yeah, similar to modern humans. They were the first to migrate out of Africa. So Homo erectus are the ones that actually started in Africa. They migrated out of Africa. So what was happening during that time in the European countries? Did they not have any sort of like human civilization or any sort of like Australopithecus, maybe the early humans? Okay, Homo sapiens, modern humans evolved in Africa about 300,000 years ago. And I know Neanderthals actually went into extinction like 30,000 years ago. So humans actually did spend a lot of time with the Neanderthals. I truly believe there was civilizations living underwater who have these spacecrafts. Wow, if there were civilizations actually living underwater, I don't even know how they would be able to make such sort of advancements. I mean, if they had like the objects that were actually made for like underwater stuff, I would understand that because they were spending most of the time in water. But how would they have time to actually create the spacecrafts? This would be a question, right? Because they're spending most of the time underwater, and it wouldn't really benefit them a lot. Mm. Most modern, okay, interbreeding with other hominins like Neanderthals. Okay, they did that. Uh, Significant increase in the brain size and complexity over the past 2 million years. Mastery of the fire for cooking enabled greater calorie intake. If they can breathe underwater, their blood circulation is way better than ours. If they can breathe underwater, over water, the breathing would be much easier for them. Yes, I guess. Um, if their blood circulation is actually much better than us, then their brain power should also be better than us, to be honest. Because yeah, your brain power increases when you increase the blood flow to the brain. Your neurons are probably, I don't know if they're going to be traveling at a higher speed or not, but yeah, there's science behind it. That's why people they've done a bit of research where they find out that people who do martial arts without taking any sort of like serious damage, who are doing like bit of jiu-jitsu wrestling, their brain power actually increases because the blood flow they're dealing with the blood flow on a daily basis. First of all, you're moving around a lot, so your blood flow is increasing. Second of all, when you put somebody to sleep, right, when you actually have a choke on somebody, you're just like the survival instincts that actually increase the blood flow. So that I do agree with. So the development of symbols, art, and complex social structures accelerated in the last 100,000 years. Humans did not evolve from chimpanzees or modern apes. Instead, humans share a common ancestor that lived roughly 6 to 8 million years ago. Linear progression. Humans' evolution was not a straight line, but a complex, branching family tree where many species coexisted, interbred, and went extinct. What is the theory of humans and Neanderthals? Okay, humans and Neanderthals. Humans and Neanderthals interbreeding. We're gonna find out about that. Okay, genetic evidence has confirmed that modern humans, Homo sapiens, and Neanderthals, Homo neanderthalis, interbred multiple times over tens of thousands of years. As a result, most people today with ancestry from outside sub-Saharan Africa carry approximately 1 to 4% Neanderthal DNA. So anybody outside of the Africa, they're talking about like sub-Saharan Africa, carry approximately 1 to 4% of the Neanderthal DNA. So we have Neanderthals in us. We do have that. While early mixing like occurred as far back as 100,000 to 200,000 years ago in the Middle East, the primary admixture event that shaped modern non-African genomes happened roughly 47,000 to 65,000 years ago as humans migrated out of Africa. Bro, so were there no humans in European countries, by the way? They're saying human migrated out of Africa in 47,000 to 65,000 years ago. They're probably talking about the Homo erectus, which are like the oldest civilization of the human beings that lived there for a long, long period of time. So what was living there before? What was in Europe before? So where are Neanderthals living during that time? Recent 2026 studies suggest a strong sex bias in these pairings. Evidence indicates that interbreeding was predominantly between male Neanderthals and female modern humans. This is supported by the fact that modern humans have very little Neanderthal DNA on their X chromosomes. Also, they have very little DNA on the X chromosomes, which means that most of the breeding was taking place between a male Neanderthals and a female. Also, Neanderthals was kind of dominating us, I would say, right? Because their male is actually having sex with our females. Neanderthals' DNA has influenced several modern human traits, including immune systems. Some inherited genes helped our ancestors adapt to new pathogens outside of Africa. These genes are linked to skin pigmentation, hair color, and even sleep patterns. Okay, so Neanderthals actually change the skin color. I don't know. I wonder what is like. It is like mules. Remember, sharks can live hundreds of years. Sharks, I do believe that. I even believe that about the alligators. I think alligators, crocodiles have actually have a very long lifespan. It is like mules. Mules cannot actually give birth, right? No, no, no. But it's not like mules though. because the Neanderthals had sex with the humans of that time, and the human that was actually getting born also has the ability to actually give birth. So it's a little bit different from mules. It's a horse and a donkey. In a sense, I can understand like a horse and a donkey, some sort of the same. They came from the same ancestor, but they are different species. But they're having interbreeding with each other. But then their child doesn't actually have the ability to give birth. So in this case, the child has the ability to give birth, but at the same time, Neanderthals and human beings are two different species of the same ancestor, right? They're two subspecies. Um, okay, so skin pigmentation. So I wonder what the skin color was that of the human beings of that time, and what was the skin color of Neanderthals? Hair color and even sleep patterns. Like being a morning person, or Neanderthals could be a night person. I don't really know. I mean, the child of female Neanderthal. That could also be true. That could also be true. Yeah, that could also be like if it was a female Neanderthal, if it was like a male human being, maybe the child wasn't able to give birth. Maybe there was something like this. Some Neanderthal variants are associated with the risk for certain diseases such as type 2 diabetes and certain viral susceptibilities. Okay. East Asian populations typically hear about 20% more Neanderthals ancestry than Europeans. So East Asians have a lot of it. So Chinese and those people have more Neanderthals in them. Scientists believe this is because the East Asian ancestors underwent additional separate breeding events after splitting from the European lineage. I don't know when they got separated from the European lineage, actually. That must have been like a long time ago. Researchers have found specific fossils that prove recent interbreeding. For example, a 40,000-year-old jawbone found in Pastera Cuoes, Romania, belonged to a man who had a Neanderthal ancestor just 4 to 6 generations back. What? Belonged to a man? A 40,000-year-old jawbone found in Pastera Cuoes, Romania belonged to a man who had a Neanderthal ancestor just 4 to 6 generations back in the family tree. Additionally, the 45-year-old Zlati Kun woman and Ostasian man have provided critical data for defining the interbreeding timeline. Okay, that is pretty crazy, by the way. That is insane. Okay, guys, I'm probably gonna get off the stream right now, and I might get off the stream for like I don't know, for like a period of time, maybe like 40 minutes, 45 minutes or something, like, or maybe like an hour. But I will come back to the stream. I think today is one of the days when I can actually stream a lot because the gyms are closed. There's not much to do, so I'm home and I'm chilling, and I'm probably just going to be streaming a lot. So I'll get off right now. Thanks for joining. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please subscribe to it. Please like the videos. Please comment on the videos, and I will see you soon shortly. Yep.